Hello, my friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching from in the world. How is everyone this morning? I know we said we were going to start on a delay today, except I realized, well, the defense is going to start their case today, and I think the defendant, Rob Tellis, is going to testify. And if it was my case, I would put him on first. So I thought, just in case he's going to testify today, and just in case he's going to testify first, I thought we should watch that live together. So here we are. Good morning. Rainy and cool Pacific Northwest. Insane in the men brain. Hello. I have law and crime up. They're not ready yet. They had their sound up and they were making like weird noises on there, and then they turned it off. So I don't know what that was all about. Perhaps that was about them trying to get their sound up, which is great. Hopefully they're going to have a triple split screen for us today. What do you call that? The screen that's split, but into thirds. That was pretty cool. We saw that yesterday. And we've seen some excellent, excellent camera work, depending on who's behind camera on the day of the trial in this Rob Tellis trial out of Las Vegas. Hello, Paula, to sunny Evergreen, Colorado. I am a buff, as you know, and have deep and wonderful ties to Colorado. Let me put my ScoBuffs symbol in the chat. And we have special emojis for members here. So ScoBuffs, Deion Sanders is our coach this year, and we coming. We coming. So hello, Paula, to Colorado. Because if you live in Colorado, you call it Colorado. If you live in Colorado, if you are not from Colorado, you probably call it Colorado. Right? David Grillo was in here greeting everyone. For at first one in, greeting everyone. Good morning, David Grillo. Thank you for that. We appreciate you. Oh no, poor Gitmo went to get his sideburns trimmed. Had a new barber and looks like boss baby's forehead now. I'm sorry. So hard to find a new person to do your hair, isn't it? Sideburns. Because once you find someone you can trust in the hair department, the relationship lasts forever. And if they ever retire or go somewhere else and don't tell you they're going somewhere else, it's a big problem, right? Coach Prime is amazing. I don't know, Terry, should we call it a tri-screen? I mean, sounds good to me. Good morning, Oahu. Oh, Andrea, we all wish that we were you today in Oahu. I'm sure that you have way better weather than we do. We are on the tail end of a hurricane here. There's been a state of emergency declared here on Long Island. Roads have washed out. Major flooding. The sun is out now for a little while, but we got something like 10 inches of rain the other night within a very short period of time, and it's really bad. Hello to Boston, Amy. Amy, when is Judge Cannoni going to render her decision on the Karen Reed juror issue? When? It's been 11 days. What's going on there? Heard she's going on vacation the last week of August and the first week of September, so wouldn't it be nice? Hello, Pilgrim Shadow. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, so you can tell me, but it's the Finger Lakes region of New York, which is beautiful. They produce a lot of really great wine up there, don't they? A lot of great wine. 6:30 p.m. in Ireland. Hello, Michelle Dunn. I love my Irish viewers. A lot of Scottish viewers too. We have so many viewers from Ireland and Scotland, and from England, London area. Oh, good. I'm glad you caught up this morning. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And Wales as well. Look at that. Look at that. And then Aiden from Dublin. But of course. Thank you, Brigitte. It's okay now, but there were parts of the North Shore of Long Island that were completely washed out. Roads that have to be like houses sliding off cliffs out a little further east from where I am. Gloomy Massachusetts, Heather. Isn't this gloomy weather enough already? I'm done with it. I need the sun. Helene from Nashville. Good morning. Good afternoon. It's so weird doing a trial at 1:30 in the afternoon for me because usually we're up at, we're doing it at 8:30 in the morning, but I love it. I love this. This has been a palate cleanser trial, and it has been the trial of beautiful witnesses. Each witness that gets up to testify is better looking than the next. I've never seen anything like it. Right? Would you agree with me on that? That all the witnesses have been beautiful and honest. Nobody's got an axe to grind. Nobody's got a chip on their shoulder. It's incredible. Hello to Scotland, Eileen. Told you. Cornwall, UK. Tumbleweed. Wow. Melissa's tuning in from Canada. Oregon in the house. Hi, Valerie. Yeah, Max. Bev will answer when she's not so tired. She's tired a lot, right? What is going on? We'll put this up. We don't have a lovely fan to look at, but I got to admit, I do kind of miss the fan from the Karen Reed trial. It's 104 degrees in Scottsdale at 10 a.m., Laura. But it's dry heat, right? It's dry heat. Thank you. Thanks for noticing. Thanks, she. Look at Denmark. Denmark in the house. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the defense as well, Michelle. And they put him on the stand. I think Rob, Boss Baby, is going to insist taking the stand. He's been saying throughout the pretrial he's going to take the stand. I think that even if his attorney tells him not to or recommends that he don't, I think he's going to disregard that advice and do it anyway. He's a lawyer. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the courtroom, in my opinion. We've been watching him this entire trial, shaking his head, a lot of this. State did rest, Ramblin' Rome. That's what we're here for. We're here early. We're here because we're hoping he is going to take the stand because he said that he would. And we hope that he's not trying to trick us. Thank you, Maureen Francis, for your Cash App. So early in the stream. I appreciate you so. Hi, Shelby in North Carolina. How did you guys make out with the latest hurricane? Yeah, Olinka, they are all straight out of Central Casting. It is amazing. Listen, you guys, I caught a story this morning that is outraging me. And so I want to know if any of you have heard about it. I'm going to talk about it briefly. And if we have enough interest in this, I need to do a show on this because I'm outraged. Even if there's not interest, I'm going to do it anyway. There's a young girl named Crystal Kaiser. Does anybody know about this case? It's out of Wisconsin. Crystal Kaiser was sex trafficked in, I don't know, 2016, 2017. And she killed her abuser. It's a tragic case out of Wisconsin. Anybody know about this? And set his house on fire, stole his car. And she was just sentenced to 11 years in prison. And I'm kind of devastated by this. I don't see that the trial was televised anywhere. And it's hard for me to even find information on this. I just saw like a little blurb. Yes. Thank you, Missy Dawn. 2017 is when it happened. She was 17 when it happened, but he had been trafficking her since she was something like, correct me, Misty, if I'm wrong, 12, 13. And she finally stood up for herself. And, here's the oldest defense in the book since the beginning of time. The oldest defense in the book. He needed killing. And if he needed killing didn't work for Crystal Kaiser, I'm horrified. Yeah, she was picked up in Louisiana, right? I think on a bail violation, right? These hearings marshals are Ross. A little bit of a step above, I think, Zara. Yeah, she was victimized twice. I'm horrified by it. I'm outraged and I'm really mad about it. And I can't really find any video on it. Court TV is covering it like briefly, just stories about it. They've been covering it since like 2020, maybe. And this poor girl now she's being sent to prison for 11 years. She's never going to have a normal life. How is she ever going to have a normal life? She says, it reminds me of another case like that a little while back where a young black woman was convicted after killing her abuser, imprisoned. I think it was so sad. I think this is the same one. She was 17 when she set his house on fire. He's a white man. She's a black girl. I'm going to call her a girl. She was 17. And I'm horrified by it. And she pled guilty. That's what happened. I think she pled guilty. I don't even think there was a trial. So if anybody knows a little bit more about it, feel free to chime in here. But that's the way I started my day, being outraged and trying to find out some more information about it. And that's what I think the problem was. I think she took a plea. They gave her 11 years. I think she maybe would have been better off going to trial. Thank you, Colleen. It's horrible. They've only shown a few clips on court TV for Crystal. I'm outraged also. Poor girl, right? So is it it was a plea deal? So did they not try this case? I'm having so much trouble finding any information on this. She took a deal, so they didn't go to trial. Whoever her lawyer was gave her really bad advice. Christy says she pledged she might have gotten better results if she went to actual trial, but who knows? I've lost faith in the justice system. Thank you, Joanna, for coming in with the 10. Ashley's hearing about the mistrial has to happen before the sentencing, correct? Yes, correct. Sentencing is set for October, I think, 22nd. And I would imagine they'd either have to have a decision on that motion or hearing on the motion before that. You would hope. Misty's also outraged at her sentence. MAGA Stacker remembers hearing about that on court TV. Yep. Exactly. Alec, 11 years. That's more than some get for crimes against children. Absolutely ridiculous. Wisconsin. Do we have anybody from Wisconsin here who's familiar with this case? Shards of words. Yeah, taking the plea makes sense, but she needed advocates in her corner. Yeah. It's horrifying.
Of the 3 vehicles being washed, it was just to focus on the one which I know we addressed yesterday in Detective Gaddis's testimony. He was concerned about the anonymous tips, the number of people in reference to the anonymous tips, certain conclusions that Detective Gaddis arrived in establishing her probable cause, and we would anticipate in basically roughly him testifying to the same thing as had been previously addressed before the court in our motion, in our renewed motion, since my being retained concerning the Franks v. Delaware motion.
Okay, and I do recall reading that report. You're not going to call him first, right?
No.
I mean, so at lunch I can review his report again.
Thank you. Yes.
And then make a determination. So I'm assuming the state's making a motion to not allow.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to be able to review that report again.
Understood. And we have noticed him up as an expert witness. We have him available. And obviously we do this prior to the trial starting to see where the evidence is, the state of the evidence that's been presented by the state. He is available to testify. I've explained the concerns that.
All right, so they started in the middle of this argument. It looks like they're trying to get an expert in. The state is objecting. The judge wants to read the expert's report again to determine whether or not she will let this expert testify in the defense's case in chief. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're just joining. We are in Las Vegas for the defense's case beginning today in Nevada v. Rob Tellis. And we got here in the middle of this argument because that's where court law and crime put us.
That the state has, and perhaps Your Honor would have with his proposed testimony, and we anticipate Your Honor wanting a proffer, but I provided ahead of time his opinion by way of proffer, so the court knows the sum and substance of his testimony.
Okay. And so you won't call him before the lunch hour.
We will not.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Your Honor, so we were yesterday after court, we were provided with a series of proposed exhibits. The state has some concerns as to the admissibility as to a number of them. So our thought was maybe if we could address maybe some of the issues regarding admissibility now. What I didn't want to do is perpetually interrupt witnesses with objections on this. And certainly if we had to have these a little earlier, we could have at least maybe brought these concerns up
Who's your first witness?
It would be Dr. Mark Chambers. And what we would propose to the court, because this case has been moving forward so efficiently, a number of people are going to be available at the end of the week. We've been reaching out, trying to get people to move their schedules to be available today. There's been some difficulties in reference to that. What we anticipate doing is calling Dr. Mark Chambers this morning and then having a break so we could address these issues that should be addressed out of the presence of the jury to avoid an interrupted presentation of the defense's case.
Okay, so you're only gonna have one witness today?
Correct. As of right now, we're waiting for another witness. She had called Crime Stoppers. She was available tomorrow. We're trying to move her up till this morning. We called the hallway. She is not present yet. Again, everybody was subpoenaed to testify towards the end of the week. So we're
Dude.
trying to accommodate the real-time schedule of this trial.
Okay, so we could let the jury go, but we could deal with some of these exhibits?
Correct. Certainly.
All right, but we don't have to do it before Dr. Chambers
No,
comes
we
in.
could put Dr. Chambers on.
Okay,
Judge, can I have the evidence proposed so I can make a record of what was being objected to?
right, we could probably do that,
Yeah,
right?
the other thing is, I believe the defense will stipulate to the admission of 312 and then 316 to 336.
That is correct. And obviously, the purpose of stipulations is to make the trial process smoother and a better presentation of evidence to the jury. And obviously, we anticipate participation in the same way from the state concerning our exhibits. But yes, we stipulated the admission of those exhibits. I'm going to approach your clerk with our defense exhibits,
Okay,
additional defense exhibits. I believe we're on 2X.
so these are the ones the clerk's gonna have marked.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
so we can make a record later. We are, yes, we're on X right now.
And the only other thing, Your Honor, is remember how I talked about having a flash drive of the long form of all the video?
Right.
The defense raised a couple concerns. I'm just deleting the images they don't want on there to go back to the jury. I want them to check my work to make sure I remove what they wanted, and then we'll be offering that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Centoya Brown.
Panel in?
Thank you. As far as the state's concerned, yeah.
All right, we can bring the panel in.
And Brittany, you're right. It's Crystal, Chrystul, Kaiser, Kizer. That's the case we were talking about a few minutes ago. So they only have one witness ready for today, which is a shame because he's saying, the defense attorney saying they didn't subpoena them until the end of the week because, they didn't think the trial was going to move so quickly, but, not really an excuse. Originally, they said they had 10 witnesses. We thought Tellus might take the stand today, but it seems there's going to be one witness, a Dr. Mark Chambers, and he's going to testify. And then they are going to discuss some motions and some exhibits and let the jury go for today. So that's where we are. Hot mic. There's Matt from Court TV, correct? That's him on the right-hand side of your screen. Always dressed to the nines. And this pretty blonde woman right behind the boss baby is a local Las Vegas reporter. Her name escapes me right now. Prosecution rested yesterday. I don't know why this defense attorney did not make a motion for a directed verdict or a motion for judgment of acquittal or whatever they call it in Las Vegas after the close of the state's case, but we have not seen Rob Boss Baby's wife in court, so we don't know. We were doing so well, Debbie Bouchard, moving right along.
Thanks for all. Please be seated.
Does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Draskovich, you may call your first
Yes,
witness.
the defense calls Dr. Mark Chambers.
Exactly, Anonymous. We are calling this judge, Judge Michelle Leavitt, our mashup of Cyndi Lauper, 90s Madonna, and Betsey Johnson with the voice Megan Mullally's character, Karen Walker, in Will and Grace, and we're here for it. We love her. We don't get to hear her enough.
If you please remain standing, doctor, and raise your right hand, face the clerk.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
Thank you.
Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Mark Chambers, MarkChambers.
Thank you. Dr. Chambers, if you could begin by telling us a little bit about yourself, beginning with your education.
All right. I attended undergraduate studies at Stanford University, where I graduated with a major in psychology and a minor in biology. I graduated with distinction, which meant that I was in the top 10% of my class. I also was admitted to Phi Beta Kappa during that time. I also earned a master's degree at Stanford in education. My doctoral studies were conducted at Northwestern University, where I earned a degree in clinical psychology.
How are you currently employed?
I am self-employed with a practice in clinical and forensic psychology.
If you could please explain to us the difference between clinical psychology versus forensic psychology.
Clinical psychology is probably what most people think about when they think about psychology or psychologists. A clinical psychologist deals with problems in the human condition, mental disorders, or other kinds of personal problems people may have in their lives, like depression or anxiety. They do psychological testing to help better understand a person's issues or problems or situation. And then they provide treatment services, which we usually refer to as psychotherapy or counseling.
If you could explain to us too a little more in detail what is psychology. I think we all have a pretty general idea, but if we could just address that this morning.
Psychology is the science of behavior. And although most people might think of it as relating to thought processes or something that goes on inside the brain, that's not something that we can access directly with any kind of psychological or scientific methods. So we have to look at people's behavior, and then from that, we sometimes infer things about the way that the human brain works or why people behave the way they do. But ultimately, we are looking at behavior and then drawing conclusions from that.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning for those of you just joining. The prosecution rested yesterday. The defense has started their case this morning, and this is their first witness, the psychologist, Dr. Mark Chambers, and the jury is in the room. And he has just started his testimony, so you haven't missed much of anything except for hitting the like button. So if you haven't hit the like button, please do that. Appreciate it.
Reference to forensic psychology, which you have been qualified in previous hearings to give expert testimony concerning. Is it fair to say that psychology is basically taking well-accepted principles, scientific principles concerning human behavior and applying it to specific circumstances?
Yes, and those specific circumstances are related to some sort of court issue. So a forensic psychologist may do work in family court, conducting evaluations or child custody assessments. They may work in criminal courts like this one here to provide expert testimony that might help the trier of fact, either the judge or the jury, to understand a particular issue that's germane to the case. Sometimes we also work in lawsuits and provide testimony about maybe in a car accident, what kind of psychological trauma an individual has sustained. But ultimately, as you said, forensic psychology is the application of basic psychological principles and research to the issue at hand in the court-related proceeding. And as a result of that, a forensic psychologist sometimes has to be a little bit of a jack of all trades, because there are a lot of different areas of psychology that can apply to a court-related setting. And so we have to know a little bit about a lot of different things.
Okay, would you kind of, I guess, analogize that to that of a coroner? I mean, a coroner is called upon to give an opinion concerning manner of death.
Certainly, yes. A coroner has to know about head injuries and gunshot wounds and blunt force trauma and poisoning and all different ways of death that somebody might experience. So they can't be an expert in any one of those areas. They kind of have to know all of those things so that when they perform an autopsy, they can bring that knowledge to bear to determine the cause of death.
So we have scientific principles applied to specific fact scenarios that help judges, juries make certain determinations concerning issues of fact. Fair to say?
That's fair to say, yes.
You've given and been qualified to give testimony concerning eyewitness identification. If you could, and other matters, if you could please explain to us other areas in which you have been qualified and given expert testimony concerning.
Sure. One of the big things that I often testify about has to do with the reliability of memory, because a lot of court proceedings rely on the testimony of witnesses, and by virtue of that, the reliability of their memory as to what they observed or experienced or what kind of testimony they're bringing to the court. So there's a lot of research on how memory works, the way in which it can be defective, and that can be helpful to the trier of fact to judge the credibility or reliability of a particular witness's testimony, rather than just assuming that whatever they say is automatically true. I've also testified about the effects of various medications or substances on behavior, including drugs and alcohol, because those things can distort the way people behave, the way that they think, the way that they react to certain situations. And so that can be helpful to know. Stressful situations, trauma can also affect a person's behavior and reactions to certain situations. And so it can be helpful for a trier of fact to know more about that before making a judgment about the case in front of them.
And just so I'm clear then, you've been qualified to give testimony as a forensic psychologist, and as a forensic psychologist, your testimony could address a whole myriad of situations that affect people's behavior and why they do things.
That is correct, yes.
You have been called on in prior cases by defense counsel,
Yes.
myself included.
Correct.
Have you been called upon to give testimony as a forensic psychologist in prosecutions?
I certainly have, yes.
Federal cases, state cases, if you could please explain to us just briefly your involvement in prosecutions.
I've testified and consulted all over the world. I think if I had to add them up, the number of prosecution versus defense cases is pretty evenly matched. I've testified in family court. I've testified in civil court. I testified in military and federal courts, as I said, in many, many jurisdictions.
And when you're called upon, let's say by a defense team or a defense attorney, you are not retained to give a specific opinion, fair to say?
No, I'm here
defense-oriented or prosecution-oriented, something like that.
Correct. I'm here to elucidate the relevant psychological principles and research and knowledge that will help the trier of fact better understand a case. In some cases, it's not favorable to the party that is consulting me. And I have to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't help you because the research says this, and that's probably bad for your case. And that's okay. I mean, sometimes that means a little loss of work, but I've got.
So he turns down cases that he doesn't believe in. He's telling us that he's not a hired gun. He's not going to just take a party's money and then tell them what they want to hear. If he doesn't believe in the case and what they're trying to prove, and his testimony will not support that, he won't take the case. I don't know where this testimony is going, because Telly's defense is that he was framed. So I'm not sure how reliability of memory of eyewitnesses is going to factor into his testimony, and or Telly's being medicated or drunk at the time. So let's see where this goes.
Got plenty of work, so that's not really a concern for me.
In reference to these scientific principles, you draw opinions or conclusions. You're not a research psychologist.
I am not. I mean, I was trained in research. I have done research, but in my role as a forensic psychologist, my primary skill is understanding research, being able to read research studies that have been published by other researchers, and then gleaning from that the appropriate principles and understanding about human behavior that's relevant to the case.
And these research studies, again, fair to say, cover a wide array of circumstances.
Correct.
Your job is to review the research. And let me ask you this, the research, whether it be concerning false confessions, whether it be concerning memory, it's open to peer review. And if you could explain that to us.
Sure. So the peer review process is a safeguard to make sure that research that is published has done the things that it needs to do to be reliable. So if a research team conducts a study and then they coalesce their findings and then they put together a paper or an article that they'd like to publish, they then submit it to the journal that they would like to publish it, and then that journal sends the draft of the study to a couple of other experts in the field who then look it over, they critique it, they make suggestions of what things could be done better or questions that they feel like they have that the study doesn't answer that need to be answered in the study. And in most cases then the study, if the editor of the journal feels like it still has merit despite the criticisms, it will send it back to the researchers with the suggestions and say, hey, can you make these changes and we'll take another look at it. Sometimes they'll accept it or reject it immediately, but most of the time it's that middle ground where they try to give some guidance to the researchers on how the paper can be better and more suitable for publication. So by the time a study gets published in a scientific journal, in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, it has been looked over by several sets of eyes, not just the researchers who are submitting the paper.
When you're called upon to give expert testimony concerning issues in the case, sometimes you're called upon to give a wide variety of opinions, and sometimes you're called upon to give a very narrowly tailored opinion as to perhaps a single topic.
Yes,
subject.
I think that's fair to say.
And in this case, you were retained to give testimony in the state of Nevada versus Robert Tellis.
Correct.
Did I reach out to you in reference to this case?
No, I believe that I was originally retained on this case by the defense investigator.
Okay, and that was prior to my involvement, to your knowledge, in this matter.
That's my understanding, yes.
You were called upon to review certain evidence in this case to give testimony concerning suicide attempts for those that are involving charges or
Yes.
facing charges.
That's correct.
Let's talk about this. Individuals who may be charged with.
Okay, I see where this is going. This is going to show that the suicide attempts that he allegedly made, Telly's, while the SWAT team was outside coming in to arrest him and take him into custody, was not because of consciousness of guilt, but because of perhaps what in his mind he thought the ramifications were. Remember also that during our pretrial, we watched some body cam footage of Tellis during a 2020 DV call that his wife made, and she said that he had been choking her in the car and hitting her and yelling at her, and then it carried over to the house when they got home after they were at the Bellagio that night, and she called 911. And during that video in 2020, he seemed like he was absolutely hammered, in my opinion. Then he gave a jailhouse interview that we also looked at pre-trial, where he told the reporter that he used to have blackouts regularly, where in speaking about that specific body cam footage from 2020, that he was blackout drunk and that he doesn't remember anything. And that's very common. And I think he even said that he quit drinking since then. And he also said, I also have ADHD and I was a fat kid. And he goes on, blaming all of these issues for where he is today and why he's in jail. And let's see if that's where this expert is going to go with his testimony. That's where I think it's going.
the crime attempting to commit suicide? How common is it?
Well, first of all, it's hard to say because there's a lot of people that go into custody, but it's not very common. I think it's fair to say that it's probably less than 1 in 1,000 suspects or defendants who are involved in the criminal justice system. So it's not particularly common, but it is more common than it is in the general public. So people who are involved in the criminal justice system do commit suicide or attempt suicide at a higher rate than the general public.
Like Jeffrey Epstein? Okay. In case you're wondering, I don't think Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. Just saying.
Are there risk factors that have been identified by peer-reviewed scientific research on this issue?
Well, yes. One of the risk factors that has been identified is the severity of the crime, the severity of the charge. So if somebody is accused of a particularly severe charge, then the risk for suicide or an attempted suicide is higher.
Fair to say that the severity of a murder charge is about as serious as it can get.
I would think so.
Is an attempted suicide a reliable indicator of a guilty conscience?
Not necessarily, no.
And is that based upon research?
Yes.
And if you could explain this issue.
So there, in 2011, there was a study published of a very comprehensive research project where they looked at over 27,000 suicides that were committed by individuals who were involved in the criminal justice system. And then they compared those individuals to over 500,000 individuals who were also involved in the criminal justice system but did not commit suicide, so that they could identify, well, what makes these people a little bit different than the people who didn't commit suicide. First of all, I think it probably is obvious that individuals who came in with a mental health problem were already at higher risk, because those are the people that typically commit suicide. So it wouldn't necessarily have anything to do with whether they're being charged or not, but it's clear from the research that the stress of being accused of a crime, particularly a severe crime, as I said, can cause people to commit or attempt suicide, whether they're guilty or not. And for the study that I referenced, for instance, found that there were people who had gone through the system, were adjudicated not guilty, and after their case was done, they were still at a higher risk for suicide. Other people who had their cases dropped, but had still been accused of this crime, were at a higher risk for suicide. So it was clear from the study that it's more the process of being involved in the criminal justice system, being accused of a crime, that produces the stress that can result in suicide than guilty conscience itself. And I should add, part of the problem that even addressing that question of guilty conscience is that, remember I said earlier about what psychology is and it isn't. It's about behavior. It's not about mental processes. So to accurately answer that question, we would have to know what's in the brain of the individual. Guilty conscience, by definition, regards what's going on inside, not what the person is doing. And so there are going to be many, many cases where we don't know if the person is guilty or not. So it becomes difficult to answer that question. But we do know that some people, even after they have been found not guilty by the system, just being involved in the system is a suicide risk.
And just so we're clear, you're not called upon to give testimony concerning the guilt or innocence of Mr. Tellis.
No, of course not.
That's obviously within the purview of this jury and not yours.
Absolutely.
So just so I'm clear on your testimony, if a person attempts to commit suicide after being accused of the crime, that doesn't mean that they probably did it.
It's not a reliable indicator, no.
Innocent people or people that have been exonerated of a very serious crime have attempted suicide.
Yes,
You are aware that Mr. Tellis cut his arms pretty severely in this case.
I am.
Did you have an opportunity to discuss this issue with Mr. Tellis?
I did.
Did he express to you concerns that he had at the time that he did this?
Objection, hearsay.
Was
Ooh,
his explanation to you consistent with the studies that you have just referred to?
Objection, hearsay.
It's hearsay.
Again,
judge, yay, judge is like, it's hearsay. Now, if they had put Tellis up on the stand first to testify what he told this doctor, I don't think they would have that problem. Like I said, if it was my case, I would have put Tellis up there first, because then at least the jury's going to have an idea of where you're going with all this stuff.
you have given testimony concerning these studies where a person gets accused, and as a result of the accusation and the process, not necessarily guilt, but the accusation and the process, that person attempted suicide.
Yes,
And that attempted suicide does not necessarily mean a guilty conscience.
correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Well, that was a big nothing.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can I have some sort of overview of what you reviewed in preparation for your testimony this morning?
Certainly.
We have an emoji for that, Michelle. We have a word salad emoji. Okay, so I don't know how much they paid this witness because, well, I don't know if the prosecution will ask, but all he said was that a suicide attempt does not indicate consciousness of guilt based on some study that he read one time. Okay.
I was sent the discovery from the case, which I believe included the police report, which essentially documents the investigative process that the police went through when they were assigned to this case. I think that also included some hospital records for the defendant when he was hospitalized immediately after his arrest because of the injuries to his arms. I think I saw some photos that were related to the case, and I was also provided with medical records for the defendant during his time in custody at Clark County Detention Center.
Okay. And in terms of the police reports, you mentioned that you had we call it the OR, the officer's report. Is that what you're referring to?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. How about any witness statements? Have you reviewed any of those?
I believe there were witness statements in there as well, yes.
Okay. And then did you review photographs associated with the case?
As I mentioned earlier, yes.
Video?
Don't recall seeing any video.
DNA reports?
I think I saw some DNA reports, yes.
Reports from like phone extractions, anything like that?
I think I saw a log of some phone records, so I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to.
I'm talking more like the contents of a phone.
I don't recall seeing that, but that doesn't mean I didn't.
Okay. And when was it that you were provided these materials?
It was some time ago. I was retained on this case, I believe, late last year, but I couldn't tell you the exact date.
Okay. And it sounds like you interviewed Mr. Tellis at some point.
I did.
Oh, he
When was
did.
that?
Okay, so he actually did interview Tellis. I was confused about that as well. So let's hear how long that interview was, where it took place, what he learned.
I actually interviewed him twice. I interviewed him earlier this year, I believe, and then I also interviewed him last Saturday.
Okay. And in either interview, did you record your conversation with him?
I did not.
Did you take notes?
I did.
Are your notes available?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, do you still have your notes?
Yes,
Okay, so if the court ordered you to provide them, you could do that?
I could, yes.
Okay. And you understand, of course, we don't have them yet.
I haven't been asked for them, no.
Okay. And so if we made that request and the court agrees with us, you'd be able to provide it?
Certainly.
Okay. Besides Mr. Tellis, did you interview anyone else?
I did not.
How long were the interviews that you conducted with him?
The first interview was about 3 hours, I believe. And then the more recent one was maybe an hour and a half.
Okay. Did you ever administer any tests to him?
I did not.
So it was just interviews, and so you're sort of relying on his description of events.
Well, I mean, I captured his description of events.
Okay. But what he's telling you is his factual version, right?
I would assume so.
Okay. I mean, you don't ever verify that with anybody else. Is
I
that
did
fair?
have not.
Okay. And so you're kind of getting information from a single source?
Well, I'm getting information from him for the information that he has available to him.
Okay. And like you could apply, I mean, sometimes there are tests administered in order to do psychological assessments of people,
Correct.
and none of those were done
No,
on either occasion?
no.
Okay. And you're not here to tell us anything about events that occurred on December the 2nd of 2022, correct?
Well, no.
I mean,
Not on that date, no.
you haven't been to Bronze Circle.
Council, I believe it's September 2nd.
Yeah, she said December.
December 2nd, I think.
Oh, I thought I said
Just give me a
September. I
second.
apologize. I mean September.
I was like, what
if I
happened on
misspoke.
December 2nd?
Yes,
Something
no.
else?
I mean, you haven't been to Bronze Circle.
No.
You're not familiar with any of the evidence other than what you read in the officer's report?
Whatever I read in the police report, yes.
Okay. Now you mentioned that, you sometimes testify like about the reliability of memory and that sort of thing. And that is sometimes used in cases where there is eyewitness testimony to be relied upon.
Yes,
And then sometimes I would assume it's to talk about like children who recall instances of sexual abuse that occurred in the past. They're challenging their memories of that.
that's right.
And so you kind of provide, I guess, context to how they might misremember things.
In some cases, yes.
Okay. And I think you said on direct examination that that going through the criminal justice system just in itself is a stressful event,
Yes, certainly.
and that correlates with the severity of the charge.
The risk of suicide correlates with the severity of the charge, yes.
Okay. And what we're saying is, I think you said it doesn't, I think your words were not necessarily when asked if it was like the suicidality was indicative of a guilty conscience, correct?
Yes,
And so not necessarily to me means sometimes it could be.
sure. Of
Okay.
course.
So there are sometimes people are suicidal because of feeling guilty about the crime they've committed.
I think that's almost certainly true.
Okay. Do you have any kind of information? I don't know if there are studies on that about how often that might be the case.
Well, because as I said earlier, we don't know what's going through a person's mind in most cases unless they tell us.
Right,
People that commit suicide don't usually have much to say.
right. But if
And
you
so-
attempted it, you
Right.
would.
And even when they tell us, we can't always rely on that as being
Tell us. He said,
accurate.
tell us.
So it's a very difficult question to address directly through scientific study.
Because people who have attempted suicide may be unreliable narrators about why they did things, right?
Absolutely,
And they may be self-interested when they're relaying events to you.
for sure.
And they may be motivated by sort of wanting to avoid criminal responsibility when they're talking to you.
Yes, definitely.
All those factors are always at play when you have someone charged with a crime. Would
They
that be
can
fair?
They can be.
Okay. And Do you think there's a correlation of suicidality when people like in high positions in society have what's called like a fall from grace? Do you know what I mean?
Wait, suicidality? Is that a word? I'm gonna have to look that up. Suicidality? How about suicidal ideation? I gotta look it up.
Being publicly embarrassed?
Yes, I think that that's probably a factor, because when I talk about the stress of being accused of a crime, whether or not you did it,
Mhm.
there are a lot of factors that play into that. There's
Word.
family, there's friends, there's finances, there's your employment, but also, as you said, if it's somebody who has a prominent position in society,
Word.
just the public scrutiny of being accused, whether you're guilty or not, is sometimes inescapable. And we see cases of that all the time, where people are accused of a crime, they're tried, they're found not guilty, but that scrutiny, that public scrutiny continues. Not everybody accepts a not guilty verdict, and so it can be very difficult to function in society afterwards.
But that public scrutiny would still exist and the embarrassment would still exist if you were guilty too, right?
Right.
And if, say, you were the subject of really negative articles that were published countywide, that would be a stressor that someone might experience as well, right?
Correct.
Being accused of inappropriate behavior in the workplace would be a stressor for somebody, right?
I would think so.
Being accused of being a bad manager would be stressful for somebody, right?
Almost certainly.
Okay. And
Suicidality is a word. It is a word. Just to settle that bet, it means the risk of suicide, according to the American Psychological Association, usually indicated by suicidal ideation or intent, especially as evident in the presence of a well-elaborated suicidal plan. This prosecutor is doing an excellent job with this expert witness, an excellent job. This is a masterclass on how to cross an expert. She is concise. She's getting him to agree with her questions in a very nice way, pointing out all of the other things that were going on in Tellus's life that may have wanted him to take his own life, including all of the things that led up to this and all of the things that may have been pointed out during Jeff Garman's articles about him. So this is excellent, excellent work. And she's gentle. I like her style a lot.
sort of being accused of being kind of incompetent at your job would be a stressor if that was something that was like published to, say, the county.
Yes.
Okay. And those types of things cause stress on individuals that may or may not manifest as suicide, but they're troubling to individuals to experience. Is that fair?
Sure. Some more than others. It's all about personality and experience, but yes, I would think generally that's true.
And when you say some more than others, if they're someone who puts a lot of importance on their role in a particular office or status, it would be more upsetting for that type of person to have maybe negative articles written about them.
I would think so, yes.
Okay. Could I have the court's indulgence?
See how polite they are in Las
Thank
Vegas?
you.
Can I have the court's indulgence?
Yes, just some follow-up.
I'll pass the witness.
Based upon your testimony and your opinion, there's not really this correlation concerning more evidence against someone for a serious crime than results in a higher likelihood of suicide.
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that?
Absolutely. So there was questions that you were asked concerning evidence in a particular case.
Mhm.
And are you able to say there's any correlation between, let's say, the more evidence of a person having committed a crime, that being correlated to the higher likelihood of suicide?
I think it's probably more accurate to say that it comes down to the individual's perception of his situation. So, for instance, if someone believes that they're in big trouble, that the cops have them dead to rights, whether or not they're guilty, that probably produces more stress than somebody who thinks, yeah, I can get out of this, or I'm good, or they don't have anything on me. So the objective status of that person's situation is probably less important than the subjective perception of the situation that they're in.
So again, that underscores, obviously you agree that human beings, we can be fairly complex and our behavior can be
Yeah, I
fairly
think that's
complex.
pretty obvious. Yeah.
It is. And oftentimes people think, well, if this person committed suicide, if he committed suicide, he must have committed the crime. You're here to dispel that common view.
Yes.
And there's actually scientific data that does so.
Right.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Any cross?
Nothing else, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hawks?
It's crazy, right? Truth seeker. Andrea, were you here the other day when we went over the word vituperative? That's our word of the week. We're all trying to use that. Vituperative, Vituperative, means bitter and abusive. It was in the motion papers on Ashley Benefield. Vituperative.
You can approach.
They're approaching. I mean, tell me he does not look like Boss
The
Baby.
confession from a juror has been marked as court's exhibit number 15.
Another great thing about this trial, Las Vegas, Nevada, allows questions from jurors in criminal trials, and they have a question. Let's hear it.
Has anyone in your experience ever attempted suicide in an attempt to gain sympathy from being accused?
I think that's almost certainly true, yes. Especially when the suicide attempt is not successful. Sometimes people do what we call suicidal gestures, which just refers to the fact that it kind of looks like a suicide attempt, but it wasn't fatal. And in many cases, people do that just to garner sympathy or to deflect attention from some other issue that they're concerned about.
Total backfire, Sir Ray
Any
Davies.
follow-up, Mr. Draskovich?
I do, thank you. And in reference to this, and we're not saying that's necessarily the case in this case, are we?
No, I'm not at all.
And this perhaps deflection, this perhaps attempting to get sympathy doesn't necessarily equate to knowledge of guilt or guilt.
No, it definitely does not.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Ms. Weckerly, anything else?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Chambers, thank you very much for your testimony here today. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You are excused from this opinion. Thank you very much for being here. You know where to go.
I'll step outside to see if our next witness is available.
Yeah, that was that backfired on the defense big time. Boss Baby should be angrier than he looks. Megan Mullally's voice. I love that. I love it when you guys change your usernames for the trial, and I know that's for this trial, T. Good question from the jury. Somebody said, have I ever seen that before? They allow it in Florida in certain cases. They allow the jury to ask questions in Florida. We saw that in the Maya Kowalski case. That was a civil case. If you guys can name some other states where you've seen the jury in criminal trials ask questions.
Our next witness is not here, and as I explained to the court, we had them set for later in the week. We'd anticipate our next witness being available after the lunch break, Your Honor.
Oh, okay, this afternoon?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh.
So at this time, we are going to break for lunch. During this recess, you're much time to discuss or communicate with anyone, including your fellow jurors, in any way regarding the case or experience, either by voice, phone, email, text, internet, or other means of communication or social media. Read, watch, or listen to any news or media accounts or commentary about the case. Do research, consult dictionaries, internet, or reference materials. Do any investigation.
Don't go anywhere because the lawyers get to argue and we're going to get to hear the judge. This is going to be fun.
Test a theory, recreate any aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own, or form or express any opinion regarding the case till it's finally submitted to you by 1 o'clock.
Could we start at 1:30, given the other issues that we're
Sure.
going to address?
Okay, so we'll be in recess till 1:30. Thank you very much.
Well, the jury will. I don't know if the lawyers will. Oh, don't even tell me that you're not going to let us watch the arguments. Come on, Court TV. You blow. That's crazy. All right, let's take some questions while we're here. Chit chat a little bit. But before we do that, I have some amazing news for you. For all of you that were so worried about this huge data breach that just happened with regard to your social security number and every other person in America's social security number being hacked and released to the dark web and being sold out there. Today's sponsor of our show, which is a great thing to have a sponsor, because yesterday, for some weird reason, the stream was demonetized because YouTube didn't deem it friendly to advertisers. I have no idea why. If you guys can point to me what you think was unfriendly yesterday, let me know. Maybe there was a shot of the body at some point. But that was crazy and annoying. So that's why it's amazing to have a sponsor. So take a listen to this word from our sponsor, because I have a solution for you, and you can try it for 2 weeks for free to see if your information has been leaked. Everyone's has, so everyone needs this. Today's video is sponsored by Aura, and it's a really important time to be talking about them because hackers may have stolen the social security numbers of every American. Over 2.9 billion records were stolen from National Public Data, which offers personal information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and others doing background checks. These stolen records include a person's full name, address, date of birth, social security number, and phone number, along with alternate names and birth date. And members of this hacker group have reportedly released this information on the dark web for free. I don't know if you've ever had your identity stolen, but I've had clients who've had their identity stolen. And not only is it a major hassle, but oftentimes before you find out, it's too late. The damage can take years to undo, and it's a hassle that you definitely do not want to deal with. So if you haven't been taking precautions before with your personal information online, this should be a huge wake-up call. You've never been more vulnerable online than you are right now. But I'm not too worried about it because I use Aura. Aura alerts me if they find my phone number, my email, my social security number, or any other personal information on the dark web. They're going to let me know fast if anyone tries to use this information to access my credit or bank accounts. They give me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen. They also provide a bunch of other features to keep you safe online, all inside one app. And you can go to my link at www.aura.com/Melanie Little to try it for free for 14 days. That'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal information or data has been exposed. I highly recommend you do this right now, because not only is National Public Data not going to do anything to help you, they probably aren't even going to face any repercussions for this breach. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches. And if you don't want to either, you want to go to my link, www.aura.com/Melanie Little, to try 2 weeks for free. You can thank me later. You can thank me later. And so many of you have told me your horror stories about things that happened to you, having your identity stolen. Somebody even came in and said that their house was stolen, and it's a nightmare. Horrifying. So if you guys have any questions, hi, Nina. Thank you so much for chiming in from Switzerland. Can't wait to go to Switzerland someday. I've never been. Nice to catch alive again. Boss baby just likes to play with scissors and cut shoes, hats. Greetings from Switzerland. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Kimmy, thank you also for all of your super chats. I know a guy who knows a guy. Cotton swabs, meaning cotton swabs. Why? I could show you they all touched noses. And well, the forehead tilt. Forehead tilt is the same size. Oops. I don't know what you meant by that, but I tried to put them up in real time, but I didn't get a chance to thank you. So thank you, Kimmy, so very much for your super chats. Pilgrim Shadow. That sounds early. Can you discuss the DNA under the fingernails issue? I didn't understand the DNA issue yesterday. Well, they found Gehrman's DNA underneath the fingernails of the defendant, Boss Baby Rob Tellis. But the defense took great pains to point out during all the photographs that were taken of Mr. Tellis, like 5 days post murder, that he had no injuries. And so we were discussing whether or not, defense argument is that he's framed, right? He's framed by, who knows, Compass Realty, Detective Jappy. We haven't really gotten a clear answer on who he thinks framed him. But seeing that the person we saw in the video was covered head to toe with long sleeves, jeans, cheap sneakers from Ross or Marshalls, maybe, Nikes, gloves, and a hat, we were discussing where that DNA could have come from and whether you would need to have an injury to have DNA under your fingernails. So we're waiting to find out the answer to that question. We're hoping the defense can clear it up for us. Maybe that answers your question. If anybody else wants to chime in on it, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Yeah. So that's exactly. Was it possible to get it under Gehrman's nails if the perpetrator is the same person we saw in that video, right? Covered head to toe. So that's the question that we have. We were debating that a little bit in the chat. What say you? Hello, Chantal. Welcome back. I've been in a live forever to go back a few lives to your favorite Law and Order character of mine has and will always be Detective Mike Logan. It's Mike Logan. I don't remember Mike Logan. I'll have to go look it up. Thanks, Chantal. Isn't that what I said? Boss Baby's DNA under Gehrman's nails. I thought that's what I said. If I didn't say that, that's what I mean. Yeah, did I say that? Sorry. So they found the defendant's DNA under the victim's fingernail, Gehrman. I thought I said that. Okay, well, that's what I meant to say. So that was our question. How did the DNA get under there if he was covered in long sleeves? Jay-Z says it doesn't have to be a deep scratch to pick up DNA. I mean, the defense's argument is, look, you took all of these pictures of him. There were no injuries except for the bloody right hand ring finger, right? But we think he was wearing gloves. We don't know. We just had questions about that and we were sort of debating it. Think it came from his face, just scratches. Could be. Oops. It happens sometimes, but I love when you guys point it out because you do. Yeah, they found Tellis's DNA underneath the victim, Jeff Gehrman's fingernails. Kevin says to Tellis remove the glove to check for pulse to ensure unaliving. Maybe he was not quite dead. Could be. The face wasn't covered. Maybe he got a swipe at his face. Could be. Hi, Olivia. How are you? All right. It happens sometimes. Still, a little bit earlier here. It's not. I really have no excuse for that, actually. I've had coffee. I don't know. No excuse. Max says, I highly doubt that Compass placed epithelial DNA under Mr. Gehrman's nail. Just saying. Yeah, then why are we here? Because Rob Tellys thinks he's being framed. Yeah, and what about the Denali, the straw hat, the bag, and the shoes all found in his house? Some of it was cut up. The surveillance video, the stuff that was found on Tellis's phone, including pictures of Gehrman's house, Google images of Gehrman's house and the neighboring homes. Right? Hi, Don K9. There is no such thing as a stupid question. I keep coming and going in this case. If he cut off the sneakers and the hat, what did he do with them? How were they found? They were found in his house. They were found underneath his sectional sofa, underneath where the recliner portion of that sofa was. That's where they found the sneakers. And the hat was found cut up in a Sprouts bag in the garage behind some other items on a shelf. Oh, I love Munch too. Munch was played by Richard Lewis, right? Was it Richard Lewis? No. Tell me who played Munch on Law and Order. Blood could have seeped through and gotten under his fingernails. Could have. We don't know when he cut his finger. I was kind of thinking he cut his finger during the time that he was cutting up the evidence, because they also found Tellis's blood on the scissors, remember? Moon Goddess, the victim, obviously was grabbing at him, covered. If his face or neck, he got sweat. He could have, right? He could have, like, because I think he was attacked, they say, from behind, right? There were 7 stab wounds, although one of them was in the front of the chest. Yeah, he could have grabbed him around the face, could have grabbed him around the neck. Great point. We think Tellis is going to testify. We were hoping he was going to testify first, which would have made more sense from my POV. But this morning we had an expert witness psychologist who just came in to tell us that just because someone may attempt suicide, it does not show consciousness of guilt. It may just mean that they're very stressed out about potentially getting put in the system. Thank you, Pilgrim Shadow. Thank you for clarifying the DNA issue. If you get confused, listen to the music play. It's a quote from Franklin's Tower, Grateful Dead. If you know, you know. See that poster behind me? Pilgrim Shadow knows. Thank you, mods, for all your work. Michael wants to know how Tellis was stuck in the bathtub. That does remind me of a song called Fat Man in the Bathtub. Name that band. However, Tellis is a small man. So yeah, I don't know. That testimony about him being stuck in the bathtub, meaning, I mean, we just now learned that he had some very deep cuts to his arms. We didn't really hear that testimony yet, and we heard it from the attorney. So did we hear that from any medical provider? Because I don't think they called any medical providers. That's right, his little feet. Fat man in the bathtub. Richard Belzer, that's who it was. He was a legend. That's right. Correct, Kathy. Like Maya Kowalski's mom. That wasn't showing consciousness of guilt, right? Who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance, Shelley? I don't know. Nina says the witness wasn't bad, but the evidence is overwhelming. Oh, yeah, I think he was a very credible witness. I'm not going to bash the witness. Some people were, trying to say that he's, a liar and whatever. Like, he's not a liar. He's a great expert witness. He just didn't have a lot to work with. And if he did interview Tellis and he wasn't allowed to testify about his interviews because it's hearsay, then it was kind of a nothing. Cutting his arms, Scott. Cutting his arms. Joe Schmo, I'm a little confused. Was the last defense witness there to testify about how the defendants might or might not have been? Well, he was, because when he was on the phone or talking to the SWAT team or talking to law enforcement, I mean, that's where they found him, in the bathtub with these deep cuts in his arms. So what it does is it's just telling the jury that just because someone does attempt that, it doesn't mean consciousness of guilt. They could be doing it for other reasons. Olivia says the DNA under Gehrman's nails could have been Tellis's sweat that soaked through his clothes. Yeah, it was 115 degrees that day, and he was wearing jeans, I think, long sleeve shirt, that giant straw hat. We have an emoji for that giant straw hat, and gloves. So he probably absolutely was sweating, and that's a great point, Olivia. And that's why Olivia's here a lot of the time, because Olivia is a genius. Olivia, when is Judge Cannoni going to rule on Karen Reed's motion? Why is it taking so long? Why has it been 10 days since the argument, when I think the papers were filed something like 5 weeks before that? What is taking so long? Why are we sitting here waiting when she's going on vacation last week in August, first week in September? Can you answer that question for me? Because I would love to know the answer to that question. Oh, Antoinette, I starred this. What's with the judge's body language, wringing of hands, fixing hair, etc.? I don't know. And she also chews gum. My gut is that she may have a medical condition. And I don't know, and I don't want to diagnose her at all. But I was also noticing some tics or some sort of body motion. And a lot of times, like in her judge's rules on the website for this court, there is a strict rule of no gum chewing. And I believe she does chew gum. And it may be due to a medical condition. I do not know. So I do not want to bash her, because I just love her as a judge. Olivia, because Judge Cannoni's tired, obviously. Can we have a better decision a better reason Can there not be a better reason than that? Scott says Bev ain't given a decision until after her vacation is my guess. We do not know which direction he was cutting, Margaret. Maybe they'll bring in a witness to testify about that. Could be nerves, Brigitte says. The judge, I think the judge is cool too. Magnolia Gypsy says those safety shirts are designed to wick and absorb sweat too. It would be very concentrated sweat. Bindlestick says Bev will take months. What a mess. Yeah, except that she put the trial date 6 months out because she was expecting an appeal on whatever her decision is. So chop, chop. Right? Toot sweet. Chop, chop. Oh, I think I just deleted a comment by mistake that I meant to highlight. So Mal, sorry about that, because I think you were trying to explain sweat to us with regard to DNA. So that was a mistake. Bridget says she's amazing. She doesn't seek attention like Bev does. She's not dominating. Yeah, she doesn't interrupt. She lets the attorneys talk. And I'm loving her. I'm sorry that we don't get to hear more of her. And I'm sorry that they cut off the court feed when we want to hear some argument from the attorneys so we can hear a little bit more from the judge. Thank you, Sarah Berger, so much for your coffee that you sent me, matcha latte. Yeah, exactly. She may have medical issues. That's what I'm thinking. Hey, pretend judge, chop, chop. Maybe a bad phrase considering the current trial. You know, I'm a punster. We have a lot of fun over here, don't we, you guys? We have a lot of fun. Nothing's funny about this. R.I.P. Jeff Garman. He was an amazing man from all accounts, an amazing man, an amazing investigative journalist. And isn't it ironic? Don't you think? A little too ironic. Jeff Garman's life may have been taken by a guy like boss baby Rob Tellis, a low-level politician, an attorney who didn't like the hit pieces that Garman was writing about him, as opposed to somebody like, I don't know, Tony the Ant Spilatro, a high-level organized crime figure that Garman wrote about. Garman was used to danger. He was used to reporting on dangerous people. And isn't it ironic? Nice man. 100% agree. The judge is calling balls and strikes and not injecting herself into the trial for her 15 minutes of fame. Like, maybe, yeah, can you answer that? Can you answer that, Mr. Lally? Mr. Lally, do you want to object? Do you want to object, Mr. Lally? And that's like what a judge should do, right? The judge and prosecution having such delayed responses to the defense's first juror affidavit really limits their ability to make the invalid argument that the jury has had time to be exposed to media. That's exactly what I was thinking last night, Olivia, as I was pondering this while I was going to sleep, as I often do, because don't we have our most amazing thoughts in the middle of the night or as we're entering REM sleep? How are they going to argue? This is taking way too long. It should have been decided like immediately, because the more time that goes by, the more these jurors are exposed to. How many of them have gone back and watched the trial, have watched people comment on the trial, have watched commentary? Who knows? If there's any jurors in my chat, hello. And WTF, if you guys did acquit on charges 1 and 3, don't you think what you decided in that jury room should be enforced and valid? And now we're at August 20th. When was the verdict? July 1st? Or when did she declare the mistrial? It was like July 1st, right? Now we're 50 days later. Bingo. Isn't this a pressing issue that they want to address with immediacy and get them in for questioning ASAP? Yes, because the more time that goes by, like this expert witness just told us in the Rob Tellis trial, memories fade, right? Memories fade. Are they going to forget? Are they going to forget that they acquitted on counts 1 and 3? Are they going to be pressured from outside sources? Is somebody going to be able to get to them? Are they going to be threatened? Olivia, you know how people have been threatened for just talking about this case, for just having an opinion on the Karen Reed case. Hi to the Karen Reed jurors. I like WTAF. Thank you, Aqua. Thanks for agreeing with me. I'm not always right, but I always have opinions and I always share them with you. That's why I'm not a cupcake. I can't make everyone happy. Thank you, DK. Love you. Love your mods. Best anywhere. Love the chat. Really appreciate how you seem to always know how we're feeling. Thank you. Your empathy and sympathy is like no other. You had me at Costner. DK, I know I think you're like one of my first members ever. You're definitely an OG. Definitely an OG. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I did a stream. Was it yesterday? I don't even know what day it is. Today's Tuesday. So it was yesterday on Matthew Perry on the federal indictment for the doctor and the drug dealer that are under federal indictment for Matthew Perry. We went over the papers. It was chilling. Go back and watch it if you haven't seen it yet. It's chilling. Mocha latte is like mochaccino, right? In this case, Melanie and I have the same taste. No, it's matcha latte. So it's like a green tea matcha. But I like mocha latte too. Pitbull. Looks good to play boss baby. Mango's 2888 Canoni should be removed from this case, in my opinion. Well, Mango's, if you haven't watched it, I have I don't even know how many videos on the Karen Reed trial already and pre-trial. So in the pre-trial playlist, we went over at length the motion to recuse. She had the opportunity to recuse herself, which she declined to do. And that was one of the only decisions that she ruled on from the bench. Some of her decisions have taken something like 77 days. Kim says Bev really messed up with the jury instructions. Did she do it on purpose? I have ideas. I've said many times, based on the last 2 trials that we watched, Karen Reed and Ashley Benefield, jury instructions need to be revised. They're too confusing for the average person. They're too confusing for me. And I'm a lawyer, a trial lawyer with 30 years experience. And those instructions in the Karen Reed case were hella confusing. And the instructions in that case never said, if you are able to reach a verdict on one or more of the charges, you may tell us that verdict. You may deliver that verdict on one or more of the counts. It didn't say that. It said, do not return any of the papers to us or me or talk to anyone until you have reached a consensus on all of the counts. Do not even fill out any of the papers until you have reached a decision on all of the counts. Am I right? Olivia, Bev ruled on that motion in a cool 10 minutes. Not even, remember? And I remember Liza Little holding up that giant poster board. They call them chalks in Massachusetts. I don't know why. It's not a chalk. It's like a science fair poster board with that Venmo transaction from Julie Nagel to Ryan Nagel. That's said in the memo portion for Frank and Beverly. Turns out Judge Canoni's husband's name is Frank, but it said Beverly, spelled Beverley, and her decision said, or her oral decision, in her oral decision, she declared, I don't know who these people are. I've never rented out my Cape House, and that's not the way that my name is spelled. What she could have said was, listen, I don't know those people. I don't know Sean McCabe. I don't know how he knows that I have a seaside cottage and why he's telling Aiden Carney that he's going to bury his body under my seaside cottage. I don't know why Matt McCabe or Sean McCabe, it's Sean McCabe, right, was calling me auntie. But what I do know is that in order to avoid the appearance of impropriety, I'm gonna step away from this case because we're interested in justice and we don't want it to look like I may know some of these people, even though I don't. However, As you know, that's not what happened. Hello. Hello, Ireland. Hello, Andrea Collins. That's what she said, Olivia, until you're unanimous on all of the counts. I wonder that jury was confused and waiting for the instruction on that last day. Right. Right. And she said, I'm going to come in and talk to you. And then maybe they thought, okay, maybe she's going to ask us. And she apparently didn't. And then apparently when they were on the bus to go back to their meeting spot or wherever their cars were parked, which was luckily, well, it was supposed to be a secure location, but one of the jurors said that there were photographers there and media. It wasn't until they were on the bus that they were like, okay, well, what just happened? We found her not guilty on counts 1 and 3. Why didn't anybody ask us? They must be going nuts. They must be going nuts. If anybody wants to talk to me, I'm here. I'll keep you anonymous. Okay. We always have at least 14 side convos going on in our chat. That's why it's awesome. KCL, I think you guys are trying to figure out how tell us Lord Gehrman over to the side yard. I think. And KCL is saying, maybe tell us yelled help. And Gehrman went over to see what was going on his side yard. It could be. Chantal, we need a Melanie After Dark stream. Her spiciness at the Ashley verdict was everything. I did kind of do a Melanie After Dark stream with the Glarer one night. If you haven't seen it, go back because it's a really fun show. And, you know, he's a lot more loose with his language over there. So it was fun. If you guys didn't see that with me and the Glarer, you should go check it out. Team Brittany says, wouldn't you have asked the other Frank and Bev come in and authenticate the memo? She was so strict with regard to getting any kind of third party discovery. That's why they had to go up to the appellate court to get some of those Google search records from Jen McCabe's phone and other people's records. I mean, talk about pulling teeth. I'm sure she would not have allowed it. I'll allow it would have been, I won't allow it. Yes, everyone hit the like button. We still have 1,400 people here. 1,450. That's how awesome you guys are. Jadzia pointing out that Beverly and Beverly often get misspelled. RTD doesn't believe Canoni. Robbie Rope says disingenuous, laughingly. Okay, says Kim. Judge Beverly Canoni is pondering her position upon getting a superior visit and will drop the 2 charges 1 and 3, drafting it carefully due to Martin Weinberg, the best appellate attorney in Massachusetts on the case now. Is that your opinion? That's interesting. I don't think that she can do it without interviewing the jurors. And I don't think that she's going to do it sua sponte, meaning on her own. There's your Latin of the day, sua sponte. Back to Boss Baby. Unless a third person confesses or the defense pulls a rabbit out of a hat, Boss Baby is having a long, long holiday. Linda says, see, you're a lawyer and how confused you are. A regular person would not know what in the world to do. And as you said, you were confused. I was confused. Scott's like, Bev's Beverly is not the common spelling. Bev has had her name misspelled her entire life. Come on, Bev. I know. That's why when I go to Starbucks, I give an alias because Melanie has been spelled wrong so many times that I have a fake name that I go by. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. KCL says, I wonder if the video recording on the neighbor's ring cam caught any sound from Telus luring it over. No, because we watched that in court. And I don't think that the neighbor's camera from across the street would catch audio from that far away. But that would have been great. Teresa says, Karen Reed is innocent. Andrea says, how can the defense team challenge it if they didn't see the verdict documents? Where are the verdict slips? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Are they part of the court record? Olivia, if you're still here, can you tell me why all the new filings are not coming up in mass courts? Nothing new, nothing post-trial is coming up in mass court. Did they assign it a different case number for the post-trial? I need to know. Mad Marcia, and do most people not close their garage door with the controls while they're still in their car? It's safer. I don't know the answer to that, Mad Marcia. I don't know. Lady Libra Shanna when she orders from Starbucks. My kids make fun of me. My real name is so hard. I know my kids make fun of me too. They're like, oh, is this yours? That is right, Teresa. We are all Karen Reed. So far in the Rob Telly's trial, to get back to that for a second, we are on at witness number, let's see, witness number 1 for the defense, but witness number 29 for the entire trial. And it is only allegedly day 5, right? Debbie Jo has no fear. Eventually the verdict slips will reveal themselves at 34 Fairview. So true. It is so true. Mal says, had to be a noise outside. Phone call would be in evidence. Maybe there was a noise that drew him over to the side yard. Maybe that was, he had been casing the joint, right? We have him on surveillance casing the joint on the days before. Maybe he always went to the side yard. Maybe it was garbage day or something. I don't know. But that's a good point. I agree with Olivia about Tellis going through the back. We have been told they have 10 witnesses, but they didn't subpoena anybody until the end of the week. So there's going to be another one after lunch. And then maybe we'll hear some argument after lunch. I don't know. Lady Lieber's like, since I've been into true crime, I too stay in the car until the garage is all the way down. Great advice. Kathy, I just read Judge Levitt's daughter and other law enforcement and judges' kids were targeted by sex traffickers. How awful. Wow. Where'd you read that? Where did you read that? I did not read that, so I don't like to put up misinformation, but if you've got a source for that, let me know. Starbucks alter ego. Because Melanie is so hard to spell, and if people spell it so many different ways, it just insults me every single time. So I just made up a name that's easy to spell. Olivia, I think Tellis actually did quite a bit of recognizance on Gehrman and observed that he would enter his house via the side way, going to the back sliders rather than through the front. That is a great point. That is a great point. But maybe, Olivia, you can answer me why the post-trial filings are not in mass courts, because that's annoying. I know. I'm at like 66,600 and something, and so it comes up as 66.6, and so we're trying to get more subs in here to get off the 66.6 number. Yeah, there was some kind of hot mic convo between Jim and the judge. We don't know who it was between. Somebody else did something and somebody sent it to me, and it looks like maybe it was Karen talking to her lawyer. He doesn't know what was changed. We never collected it or we never changed it. Like, we don't know what that said, but that's a great point. And we don't really know who said it. Somebody else did a video saying that it was Karen talking to, I don't remember who, one of her attorneys. Libby's on the money, says Steph, as always, as per usual. Sure, you can send the link to me. I'll put the email up for you. Here's my email. Oh, you're looking into it, Olivia. Yeah. So how are we getting these filings? People are emailing them to me. That's how I'm getting them. That's my email. You can use it for nice things, case suggestions, info. I read the email. I read all the emails. I do not always get a chance to respond to all the emails. I rarely respond to the emails. However, just please be advised that I cannot give you legal advice, cannot be your attorney. I cannot review legal documents for you. And I cannot be your pen pal. I'm really sorry. But, and I also cannot go pick up your son in another state who's 5 and buy plane tickets and fly him to see you in a foreign country. I can't do that either. You would be amazed at the asks that I get and the crazy emails that I get on the regular. Thanks, Olivia. Hello, Iceman. Iceman sadly left LawTube after the AB injustice and slowly coming back with hope due to recent development in this great channel. And people are like, I'm so glad that we've restored your hope in the LawTube community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's why I thought this would be a palate cleanser trial and that we could dip our toe back in the waters of justice, because this seemed like a case with some great characters and it seemed pretty straightforward, and attorneys, a judge that's great. And hopefully it will help everyone get back into watching trials, because we need to watch trials. It's important. We really do need to watch the trials because we need to know what's going on out there. We can't just bury our heads and assume that every trial is going to be horrific. Right? I know Maureen really wanted a pen pal. I know. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not a therapist either. I'm just not a therapist. I'm not. I know, Scott. You know, Scott. I would say if you know, you know, but you do know. Ding, ding, ding. Steph Hodson. I can say your full name too. Somebody asked me in my comments the other day, she said it was her daughter's 10th birthday. And it'd be so amazing if I would say happy 10th birthday to Reagan. So I did in the comments, but Reagan, if you're listening, I hope you had an amazing 10th birthday, double digits. Woo, woo. And that's amazing. And that's so funny stuff. But yeah, no, sorry, JP. I can't be your pen pal. No. Mike, Judson? No. No. I can get some donuts. I can give you some cupcakes, whatever you want. People don't understand boundaries. Like, I try to be here for you guys. I'm here for you. But, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy. We should be pen pals with the chat. You guys can be pen pals with each other. That would be fun. I know I should read some of the emails, some of the comments. Usually when I get a really wacky, nasty comment, I pin it to the top of the stream. I'm just like, okay, like if you wanted to really take the time to come to my channel, watch my video and type out that comment, you're getting pinned, and then I'll respond. And then all of you go in and defend me or whatever. And it's like, look, you wanna come over here and do that? That's what you're gonna get. And then people are like, why did you pin this? And I'm like, because there needs to be ramifications for people's behavior. Like, give me a freaking break. Yes, I did actually. I did a stream early on Shanna Gardner when she was first arrested. And yes, there was a hearing the other day. And it's in Florida. If you guys don't know, Shanna Gardner is a wealthy heiress of the Stampin' Up family, and they're in Utah, I believe. Shanna Gardner allegedly hired a hitman to kill her husband, Jared Bridegan. He was like a Microsoft exec. She and her ex-husband are both facing trial in Florida. It's in Jacksonville. And Shanna Gardner had been in Washington State, did not consent to extradition. And now she's back in Florida, and it's going to be moving along. Just maybe a while before the trial happens in that case. But if there's enough interest, I will cover Donna Adelson, which is, I think, next month. You started to bury your head, Iceman. I know what happens. It's very sad. Yes, Nigerian royalty joke. Yep. This is true. It's true. Like, buy plane tickets and I'll give you 12 acres of land. Yeah, Truth Revealed is really good. Double digits are such a big deal. God's giving advice to a 10-year-old. Reagan, don't ever leave home. Get a job, have a family if you want, but stay with your parents. Oh, look at everybody chiming in for Reagan. That's so sweet. Yeah, maybe I should do that, right? JP, some channels actually have episodes where they go through the top 10 or 20 of the nicest emails. Yeah. Yeah, Dan Markel 2.0. Yes, Scott, it's so true. The pinned commenter gets swarmed by angry cupcakes is the cartoon I picture in my head. Yeah, it's fantastic. Baez is bombastic and over the top. This is Shanna Gardner. Baez represented Casey Anthony. He represented a high-profile defendant in another case. I know what you're saying. Shanna Gardner is such a sad case. And another part of that sad case is that the children of Shanna and Jared, they had twins together, were very close with the children that Jared had with his second wife. And those children have been taken away, brought to the other coast, and they're not allowed to have a relationship with the other children. And it's very sad. It's very sad. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap for now, and we're going to come back at 4:30. Not my circus, bringing the monkeys, says Kimmy. We're going to come back at 4:30. I'm going to cover Kohberger. Oh, yeah. But that's not going to happen until summer 2025. Like, we got to stay busy before then. I have some videos on Kohberger already. But we need to, yeah, Casey Anthony. See how I can do like 5 conversations at once? There's got to be a skill for that. We need something before that, before Kohberger. I have a lot of questions about Kohberger, by the way. I don't know anything about Tom's CPU being signed for a documentary. I was approached for a documentary and I declined. Because quite frankly, they want you to do it for free. They want you to do it on their schedule. They want to use your content. And why would I do that? Why would I do that? I don't have control over the final edit. No, thanks. Nope. You're not convinced Brian Kohberger will ever get to trial at this point? It will. It's just going to be another year. Go watch the Cheap Shoes testimony. Jury Duty is it on Netflix? I thought it was on Amazon Prime. It is so good. It is so good. You'll find out. Yeah, you'll find out where the chair pants reference comes from. Yeah, it's a big no, right? Wait, I should travel to Dedham so that you can interview me for free and use my likeness forever in perpetuity for, how does that benefit me? Right, it doesn't benefit me at all. So we'll see who's going to be in this documentary. I mean, good for Tom if he wants to do, I don't know if it's the same one. Right, Olivia. Oftentimes documentary producers put a spin on it that may make you look like a villain or an idiot or, somebody who's crazy. That's why going on a reality show is never a good idea. I'm watching Love Island right now. I got sucked into Love Island. And like, it's never a good idea for anybody. They can do whatever they want to the edit and there's no ramifications and they can use your likeness forever and ever and ever. And no, don't do it. Yep, they want to edit you how they decide, then they take your content and it's no. Nope. Yeah, you're right. That skill set is called being a mom. It is. All right, my friends, we're going to wrap this stream. We're going to come back at 4:30 as soon as I hit end. You're going to be teleported over to the afternoon stream. So be sure and hit the like button on your way out. And be sure and hit the like button on your way into the next stream. And I will see you. It is 3:15 now, in about 1 hour and 15 minutes, where we are going to go back to Vegas, babies, for the rest of the day's proceedings on the Boss Baby trial. Thank you, moderators. You're amazing. Members, you're amazing. Viewers, replay viewers, and to everyone out there, just be cool, be kind, be classy. Okay, it's not hard. Really, so not hard. Love you all. I'll see you real soon.